is the place we need.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Laurance Brown continuing this episode of Interfaith Issues. We're discussing atheism, and we left off with speaking about the fact that there are many issues that atheists raise to say, how can this tragedy happen and there still be a God? And I was just pointing out that not all tragedies are necessarily a tragedy for the individual. The young person who dies and goes to paradise, if they were asked from paradise whether it was a tragedy that they transitioned from worldly life to paradise, they would be sure to say no. It was not a tragedy. For them, it was a blessing. So it all is a matter of perspective. Another matter of perspective that I think we need to remember is that within this worldly life, it was always God's favorites who suffered the greatest afflictions. It was the prophets who suffered the greatest tests, who developed the patience of Job, for example, because of the afflictions upon them. We know the prophets to have suffered greatly in worldly terms. They were humiliated by their people. They were at times tortured. They were at times killed. Some of them had children who died in their arms. And so we have to understand that the reward for piety and righteousness is not necessarily found in this life. Indeed, this life is a test. This life is a test. This life is a trial. It is a proving ground for us to show ourselves deserving of the reward in the hereafter. But now, if we expect paradise in this life, why should we expect paradise in the hereafter? No. Paradise is something to be earned. And you earn something through difficulty, through overcoming difficulty, not through living life as a party. So, remembering that some of those who suffered the most in this life were in fact the prophets, the favorites of our Creator, reminds us that there might be a higher logic, a higher understanding to the events that we look at and consider as being tragic. Maybe there is another way of looking at them which makes godly sense. And it is finding that way of looking at them that helps a person to make sense of not only God, but His creation and our purpose of being. One thing I would point out is that nobody concludes a happy event with a tragedy and considers it a good day. Nobody goes out to a wonderful night on the town, gets mugged at the end of it, and concludes, wow, that was great, I want to do it again. Nobody has the most wonderful of experiences, at the end of which it ends in some horrific tragedy and concludes that that was good. In the same way, we should not look at this life and think of this as a time for play and then find ourselves in the fire in the hereafter. It is not going to be a good conclusion. But as Allah tells us in the Holy Quran, quote, "The life of this world is but little comfort in the hereafter." We cannot believe that the transgressors and the criminals, when they suffer their punishment, are going to find comfort from any of the pleasures they achieved in this life. There is not in this life, or at least there is seldom, a free lunch. Everybody knows that if you want to get paid on your job, you have to do the work. If you do not do the work, if you underperform, you get fired. Think about that word and think about what that word means. Where did that word come from? Words do not come from nowhere. A product that is not satisfactory is recycled or destroyed. If we are the creation, we are the product. And if we are not satisfactory, it makes sense that we are the ones who will be in the fire. Again, to quote the Holy Quran, "And I have not created," this is Allah speaking, "and I have not created jinns and men except that they should serve," and some translations render this, "worship me." So that is our job description, our purpose for existence, to serve and worship our Creator. As Francis Bacon commented, quote, "They that deny a God destroy man's nobility. For certainly man is of kin to the beasts by his body, and if he be not kin to God by his spirit, he is a base and ignoble creature." So, I think it's important to realize atheism as a belief. We recognize it, we know it's there, but we ask God to save us from it. As I mentioned before, if you don't have baseline belief in God to begin with, it's difficult to pray to something you don't believe in. But how will it hurt anybody who is sincere to pray and ask our Creator if He is there? "O God, O our Creator, if you are there, guide me to the religion of truth." If you are there. And if you are there, and if there is a religion of truth, I will follow. How is that going to hurt anybody to pray that prayer? And if you pray it with sincerity, how is it possible to conceive that our Creator would not answer that prayer? We should rightfully move on from this point to discussing not atheism, but agnosticism. And although agnosticism is not a creed, but rather a method, it's a very misunderstood concept. The concept of agnosticism is not belief in God, but not knowing how to believe in God. No, rather the concept of agnosticism is agnostis, not knowing, not being able to prove. You know, from the Latin, the A is negating, Gnostic is certain knowledge. It is basically saying that you cannot prove the existence of God. By this definition, which is not the dictionary definition, but it's the definition according to Thomas Huxley, the one who originated the term, by this definition, a person can be Christian, a person can be Jewish, a person can be Muslim, and still be agnostic in the sense that they recognize God, they believe in God, they serve and worship God, but they do not believe that they can prove the existence of God to another. That is something that has to come from God Himself. What brings certainty of God's existence into a person's heart and into a person's mind? Well, religious knowledge is not like other knowledge. It's not purely academic. It is as much a matter of the heart as it is of the intellect. But to have true certainty in religion, that only comes from one place. That is a gift from our Creator. So a person can claim to be atheist, a person can claim to be agnostic and to find those ideologies satisfying. But look, there are many things in life. There are many things in life that are not provable. Gravity. Well, you can drop something and you can find it is still working, but you can't see gravity. By definition, you can't see a black hole, although you can see the evidence that points to its existence. You cannot prove your hunger drive. You cannot prove your headache. You can show the symptoms of it, but you cannot prove it. We arrive at the belief in gravity, entropy, black holes, our emotions, our feelings, and so on, because we either experience them directly or because the overwhelming evidence points to them. And in the same way, I would suggest that the overwhelming evidence points to the existence of a Creator. A Bedouin once asked why he believes in God. And he just answered simply, you know, if I see hoof prints, I know that there has been a sheep or a goat. If I see camel footprints, I know there has been a camel. And if I see footprints, I know there has been a human being. And if I look at creation, I know that there is a creator. Well, for those who are uncertain, don't try to solve it yourself. Don't agonize over it. Pray for our Creator to solve it for you. Again, oh God, if you are there. Well, in the same way that we accept gravity, entropy, absolute zero, black holes, the hunger drive, etc., I hope we all someday arrive at accepting the existence of God. And should we do so, the next question then is how to travel down the chain of continuity and revelation and arrive at the religion of truth. That is much of what I have spoken about and what I will speak about in other episodes of this series, Interfaith Issues. So I thank you for being with me tonight or today, and hope that you will join us next time. This is Dr. Laurance Brown. Until next time, this is Dr. Brown sending you the greeting of peace.
I feel the peace inside of me, a complete tranquility. I remember